Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Grim Dawn skill video. In this video, we're going to be looking at Blackwater Cocktail. Blackwater Cocktail is a Demolitionist ability that you throw out a small explosive device? Bottle with a rag in it? It's like a Molotov cocktail. It's a very tiny explosion that deals fire damage, burn damage, and other damage types as you progress with the ability. So let's just jump in with the first skill. Blackwater cocktails were concocted when more conventional explosives ran low. These improvised fire bombs leave a self-fueled blaze upon impact and are particularly effective against tightly packed enemies. So we're going to be looking at the Blackwater cocktail skill box. With this video, I'm not actually going to do 12 of 12 and then like 22 out of 12. I'm going to be showing the Blackwater cocktail as is attached to my Albrecht Array Arcanist. And I think just looking at the abilities like this is fine. Obviously, if you're focusing on it, you will have much higher numbers. But we'll just look at this because it's a good gauge on what the ability does, what its modifiers do, and what its transmuter does as well. So anyways, it has a low energy cost. It has a duration. The ability actually hits in a radius. So I'll throw some out here. Obviously in the footage, you can see them doing work. But yeah, you throw them out, they're spammable, and they sort of burn in the radius while they are, after they deal their initial hit of fire damage. It has burn damage, and it reduces the target's offensive ability. So the ability has two modifiers, Demon Fire and Agonizing Flames, and then the transmuter High Potency. So the first modifier is Demon Fire. Sorceress enchantment imbues the flames with chaotic power that melts enemy flesh and deteriorates armor. This adds some chaos damage, increases the burn damage on the main ability, and it reduces the target's armor. This is great for throwing physical damage at something, but usually for this if you're focusing on this, you're going for that chaos damage added on. And in this particular build, I'm converting the chaos damage to aether damage, but that's an aside. It adds on this extra damage type in addition to the fire damage, thus opening up synergies with this ability and other classes, which I'll go over later in this video. The second modifier is Agonizing Flames. Intensifies the fire and hell flame to degrees that will render your enemies to ashes. This increases the fire damage on the main skill, increases the fire damage from Demon Fire, and adds, probably most importantly, reduce target resistances for 5 seconds. So, what this will do is as you hit the target, they'll be weaker and weaker towards whatever other abilities, or even to the Blackwater cocktail itself. When the resistances are reduced. So it's a great set of abilities to both deal damage and get these nice little debuffs on the target. The reduced offensive ability is great for keeping you alive. The reduced armor, while not necessarily helpful for your character directly, can be a great debuff if you have someone who's doing heavy physical attacks in a party, or if you're using Blackwater Cocktail in a weird build where you yourself are actually physically attacking enemies. And Agonizing Flames resistance reduction, I think everyone loves this. Like, you'll reduce all of the resistances on a target, which will increase, say, aether damage, or chaos damage, or cold damage to a target. All told, Blackwater Cocktail is a really nice damage ability and utility ability. You can focus on it heavily, or you can just throw a couple points in it and get some plus skills on top of it, and it'll build up quite nicely. Works well with a bunch of builds, and works well on its own. And the transmuter is High Potency. This more potent formulation burns longer and degrades your foe's ability to fight. So what this does is it adds a 5-second skill recharge to the ability. I think it adds more duration and radius is what that is doing, and then increases the damage by 125% and reduces the target's physical damage for 5 seconds. So this sort of makes it a greater debuff and damage dealer, but of course you get that 5-second recharge on it. I'd probably say with Blackwater Cocktail, what you're looking at is with the transmuter, you're going to be using something like Fire Strike, or Cadence, or some other ability And you're going to want like high potency for throwing out either a single massive damaging bomb to a single target, more or less, or you're going to be using this for using it for the debuffs across the abilities, and then like whacking the enemy with Fire Strike. So in the Demolitionist tree, the synergies are kind of obvious to me, at least. You've got your Flame Touched and Temper for your damage and your defense, but also if you're actually focusing on these two, you can pick up the other bombs in this tree and sort of make a Bomber Grenadier character based around Blackwater Cocktail maybe is the main source of damage, Canister Bomb with Concussive Bomb, and maybe even pick up Improved Casing. And then Granado for that knockdown, and then the fire damage off of High Impact. You'd probably skip on Skyfire if you're building this because you're going to be building mostly fire damage. But yeah, using these three together, you can actually just fill the screen with explosions. You could probably also get something going, maybe a little bit with Stun Jacks. Like, you wouldn't be using Quick Jacks, obviously, but you could throw out a field of Stun Jacks, probably with full spread, and then, you know, burn them with Molotov cocktails. You could also work in Flashbang for its debuffs on top of the debuffs that the cocktail already has. Obviously, Vindictive Flame would be pretty good here. I don't know that I'd go with a Fire Strike build. Maybe for the high potency variation, you'd be doing the Fire Strike build. And I don't necessarily know that I'd be going for the Mortar Trap ability at all, or Olzen's Chosen at all. But I'd maybe consider Thermite Mines because they'll reduce the fire resistance on targets and the chaos resistance on targets. So you throw out the Thermite Mine, Hellfire Mine ability, and then you throw, you know, more explosions in there. I think you can get a really cool, fun build going in the form of just throwing crap at the enemy while they're burning to death in thermite. So obviously, again, as usual, don't look at the numbers here. Pretty much you're only going to be looking at the Albrecht's Aether Ray video if you want to see what these numbers are actually for. But if I were doing a Sorcerer Blackwater Cocktail build, I'd probably want to get all the way down to Reckless Power. You get % fire damage and % burn damage out of it. You also increase casting speed, which increases the speed at which you can throw out the cocktails. If you're using a caster offhand, you could easily work in Devastation for this build. Mirror Varactes and Myvid Sphere, obviously defensive abilities you want to go for. And for a Scoundrel's Elemental Exchange, you deal no weapon damage in the cocktail itself at all, anywhere in it. So you'd probably want to skip on the first ability unless you really, really needed energy regen. However, Overload and Elemental Balance would probably be good things to focus on. Overload for the % elemental damage, and then Elemental Balance for the % burn damage and the crit damage. Electra's Flash Freeze would be amazing with this, because you could freeze a room and throw tons and tons of cocktails in there. Absolute Zero, I would only focus on it if I were going to pick up the Granado, but that's for another video. Could probably skip on the Sky Shards and Star Pact. Inner Focus is great. Maybe Mental Alacrity could also be good at getting you more casting speed. Otherwise, Kalidor's Tempest, I'd use it in the Wrath of Agarex mode if I were doing a Blackwater Cocktail build, just to get things away from you, and then you could, you know, burn them all. So within the Pyromancer combination, what you'd be building here is something that crosses over Chaos with Fire. Because of what Blackwater Cocktail has for its 2 modifiers, it just adds Chaos damage onto the ability. So you'd probably want to get to Second Right and get that % Chaos damage going. You'd also maybe want to consider going all the way down to Possession for the % Chaos damage as well. But also Sigil of Consumption, specifically Destruction, has Fire and Chaos damage on it. So these 2 abilities with, say, Second Right and then Flame Touch can get you a lot of Fire and Chaos damage from Destruction, and you'd have a heal on the Sigil itself. You could also use Curse of Frailty with a Vulnerability to increase your elemental damage by decreasing their elemental resistance. You'd have a heal in the form of Blood of Dreeg and the physical resistance from Aspect of the Guardian. It might be interesting to see a hybrid build, just because the Hellhound is fire and chaos damage based as well. Though it'd be tough to build yourself the cocktails with keeping your pet really, really strong. Obviously, Storm Spirit is a, again, I think every time I've gone into the Warlock with an elemental character, I've pointed Storm Spirit out. But Storm Spirit does kind of work with this as well, since it gives you just that bonus elemental damage. And of course, if you're focused on cast damage, you could probably work in Doombolt as a 1-point wonder. I don't really think there's much else here. It's mostly for combining the fire and cast damages. It could be kind of rough, though. Pyromancer gets very, very gear dependent. But it could still be really, really powerful. And if the Blackwater Cocktail doesn't work, you could always switch to a Fire Strike Pyromancer, which can get really, really, really strong. And I'm going to mention the Commando setup, mostly for, mentioning that the Soldier combines well with lots and lots of things. Because you'll be able to get, like, Warcry and Warcry Room, then throw the cocktails in there. Blitz can help you get around, but you're probably not going to use it that much. Fighting Spirit's good defensively. If you're using a shield, Mainer's Will, Overguard, and Shield Training also work really well. And mostly what you'd probably want is Field Command. Probably go for Squad Tactics a little bit as well. You could get, Decorated Soldier or Scars of Battle. And the Soldier setup would mostly be just picking off the defensive abilities the Soldier has while supporting your Demolitionist side. It would be mostly Demolitionist focused. This would probably be where I'd go for the Bomber build. I'd probably go Commando with it. Only because you'll get a lot of defenses out of this, and the Granado and Canister Bomb are mostly going to be on cooldown, so you don't have to worry about your regen as much, and you could probably go with a shield if you wanted more defense. Otherwise for this, the attack ability you'd probably not be using at all. It's almost a little boring, but it may be a necessary type of boredom, because you'd end up going for all these defensive abilities just to keep yourself alive. You'd be really, really tough, and then you're throwing out explosions on top of being really, really tough. And I don't really know, the Elementalist combo I think is more for a lightning damage build, and then the Saboteur combo could potentially work, but I think I'd do different things with the Saboteur as well, above a Blackwater Cocktail build. So there are not a lot of item synergies for Blackwater Cocktail. There is this weapon, the one-handed mace, Herald of Burning Ends. Gives you +2 to the cocktail, +2 to Agonizing Flames. A bunch of interesting things in here. Specifically, the reduction in burn duration. So you're basically not going to take a lot of damage from burns. It'll add on the fire and burn percents. Convert some physical damage to fire for you. Gives you some casting speed. Good chunk of fire res. Extra little bit of elemental res, which is actually not that bad to have happen on a weapon. Meteor, 10% chance on attack. You can have a single large meteor drop. It can deal a lot of damage. And when we go into Devotion in a second, we'll just jump into Devotion right now. I'm going to mention that Blackwater Cocktail is great for proccing Devotion abilities. And it's actually great for proccing weapon pool abilities as well. So that meteor is actually going to drop quite a few times, even though it says 10% chance on attack, because you're burning things. And with the burn, that's actually another chance for you to proc an attack ability. So you get those meteors quite a bit. Now, I obviously really love Arcane Bomb for my Aether builds, and I have it attached to Blackwater Cocktail because you'll be able to proc it a lot. But I think one of the big things you go for in Blackwater Cocktail for proccing abilities is Meteor Shower. Because it will proc quite a lot. If you pick up Meteor Shower and throw it on the cocktail, you'll actually get a lot of Meteor Showers out of it. And if you're doing that build with the Thermite Mines and Hellfire Mine, you can actually put Meteor Shower on the Thermite Mine as well, and it will proc a lot off of that. So there are a couple abilities you can choose from for doing a Blackwater Cocktail build that can work in Meteor Shower, and I think it's my go-to for a fire build regardless, because it does have a lot of really great nodes in its line for fire/burn damage. So yeah, definitely you're going to want Meteor Shower if you're doing a Blackwater Cocktail build. I can't really think of many. I think maybe you could work in Fissure somewhere in there because it's another fire ability. And the Magi here actually does have some pretty nice fire nodes and burn nodes. So this is another fire damage thing you could go for. And because it's 10 Eldritch Affinity, you're going to be picking that amount of Eldritch anyways. So you could probably pick up the Magi on your way to picking up Olzin's Torch. I don't really think there are other major fire damage things. in here that I... Oh, yeah, Flame Torrent, of course. You can pick up Flame Torrent. Flame Torrent's fire and chaos, so I think you're probably going to end up doing something like Crossroads for chaos, and then just go straight for the Fiend, and then maybe build up, say, the Raven is good, Scholar's Light's good, Hawk is good. So what is that? 3, 7, 12. That allows you to pick up the Magi and the Fiend. I mean, you'll have the Fiend, so that's, you know, you're 15 right there. So, yeah, you could then pick up the Magi. You wouldn't even have to complete it. Because I actually think this node would probably be a waste, the flat damage fire. Though that one would probably be good for the 5% cast speed. You'll probably be, if you do complete the Magi, you'll probably be overcapping the 15. And then, like, 8 on Chaos is stupid easy to get. I have it just incidentally on this character. Mostly because of the Vulture. It's a pretty solid thing to pick up. The Vulture and the Viper. And then you'll actually be able, because I could do it right now just to demonstrate it. If I were to pull points out of the things that I have like these oneers here and there for, you can actually get the Meteor Shower ability with time dilation. So you can actually have Eon's Hourglass, Ulzin's Torch together. So you're making that bomber build I mentioned, you would attach this to like Canister Bomb or Granado, throw that out, it has a high chance to proc on attack, and then you would pretty much get it right back. And then you put this on your cocktail, obviously. Or you could put Flame Torrent on your cocktail and put this on another bomb, or put this on your cocktail, put this on your Hellfire Mines, or I mean Thermite Mines, or put this on your cocktail, this on your Thermite Mines. There are a lot of ways you can go about this, and then throw Fissure on whatever. So yeah, there are a lot of nice fire abilities actually in the Devotion trees. I don't think you'd really want to go down for the Seekers in this build. I mean, the Seekers, you get a lot of them though, is the thing. But you'd be kind of going out of your way from the really, really good stuff that meshes well with the build to get those. Okay, so that was my Blackwater cocktail skill overview video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to continue doing them, obviously, and I'm going to try to work in more things than just the Spellbreaker Sorcerer accommodations as I move along, but the sooner I get the Arcanist done, the sooner I'll move on to those other things, obviously. So I'm going to point out my Patreon link in the description below, and there should be a link somewhere on the screen. Go ahead and support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month means a whole hell of a lot to me, and I thank anyone profusely who chose to support me directly through Patreon. But anyways, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. The reduced offensive ability is much more, like, is very great at...